We're going to get started again. Hello, hello, hello. And what's up next on our agenda? And I just want to tell you that I'm not spending a lot of time because we have a lot of content on introductions, but we do have bios and links to other information and everything in the programs. So if you say, if it seems like, why isn't she giving longer introductions? We just have a lot to get through. And so the next segment of this symposium is about Unseen Tears, the Native American boarding school experience in Western New York. And it's a documentary film directed by Ron Douglas, who, when I was actually doing curating for And So We Walked, and I talked to Pete Hill. Pete Hill told me I had to watch this documentary. So it's all your fault, Pete, that we're seeing it today. And then that will be followed by a panel conversation with Doug George and Pete Hill, and Ansley Jemison is going to facilitate that conversation. And so let's start the screening of Unseen Tears.
Indians. That's a song that was counting dead Indians back on the trails when they would kill Indians.
See all these little kids in uniform, and we'd be wondering how come they're like that. We weren't dressed like that, but these little kids were.
I remember being younger, growing up on the reservation, and being told, don't trust white people, don't listen to them. You never told why.
The government schools are constantly being built and hospitals added. We bring them in, clean them up, and start them on their way to civilization.
I would ask social services and human services audience, how many people know about residential boarding schools? How many people here do? This never makes it into the history books. This is never talked about.
Why did those schools get started, and who started them, and what was the rationale behind it?
And the first general policy was the only good Indian was a dead Indian, that we needed to be killed, exterminated, eradicated. Once they realized that's a little bit more difficult to do, is to have mass genocide of a population, the policies changed from killing to killing the Indian and saving the man. There's a General Pratt who was well famous and documented for using those words to kill the Indian and save the man, and that we are subhuman and that our ways are savage and we need to be civilized. Well, in the governments in Canada and the United States followed that policy up until the 1980s in one form or another.
There is a boarding school far, far away where we get mush and milk 3 times a day. Oh, how the huskies run when they hear their dinner bell. Oh, how the huskies run 3 times a day. Like I say, I went to the mush hall when I was 4 years old. I was there for 9 years, and once in a while we'd come home in summertime, but not all the time. When the counselors came and told my dad that he couldn't raise us properly, we were at the mush hole 1 week and our heads were full of bugs.
Well, there's a lot of sad times, but I mean, like, I didn't get like angry and have any resentment until after I got out, because I didn't know, like, from 5.5 to 16, they just thought it was just like a normal upbringing, like to not have no parents and stuff like that. So that's and after I got out, and then they thought, well, this is the way they were supposed to be treating us.
I think my mother couldn't take care of us because our father was into alcohol. Me and my sister, we started there in 1945. I was 5 years old at the time.
We had all our hair cut off. We were made baldies. We were really bald. And that wasn't a very good feeling to have. And they used to call us mush hole baldies. That's what the kids on the reserve used to call us.
Well, we can go in now. I mean, this is going to take like all day, eh? Jeez.
We were taken to the hospital to get checked out for nits and whatever, I guess that was, you know. Well, they checked us out, you know. Then they split us. The school was split in age group and by the boys and girls. Boys were on one side, the girls were on one side. And they went from the lower age up to high school level.
My mom was going to walk out here and go out this door, and at 5.5, my sister tells me that I grabbed my mom's leg, and you know, of course we were all just crying. The whole 4 of us were just crying, like, you know, because my mom was going to leave us here. So I grabbed my mom's leg and well, crying and that, and just kind of like hollering like, "Ma, don't leave me," like, you know. So, but anyway, like while that was going on, like the supervisor came over and just kind of grabbed me and took me off my mom's leg, and then my mom just walked out, and I've never seen her for those 10 years that I was here. She never come to see me once. I don't know why.
They took my brother away to where he was supposed to stay, and my sister, she just went on her own. I was with most of the 4 and 5-year-olds. We didn't go to school because we were too young.
Yet, through the agencies of the government, they are being rapidly brought from their state of comparative savagery and barbarism to one of civilization.
When we used our language, at that young age too, you know, we were just learning. So they used to wash our mouth out with soap. They would take the whole bunch of us and march us to the shower, coal shower, and they'd throw us in there and beat us along the way. And that was a routine thing, I guess, I don't know. But that taught us, you know.
They'd throw us in this dark press room where they kept all our Sunday go-to-meeting clothes, and they'd throw Rosemary and I in there and tell us the rats were going to get us. But I didn't know then why I was being thrown in there, and I used to wonder, what did I do? And I would cry, and Rosemary would cry, and we cried and cried for hours in there, not knowing why we were in there. And they'd take us out. And when I did get to learn a little bit of English, I knew then they were throwing us in there because we wouldn't speak English. And I must have been stubborn right from the day I was born, because I thought to myself, I'll never speak English either. You want me to speak English? I won't speak English. So I didn't speak at all for 2 whole years, because I figured if I spoke Indian, I'd get a licking. And if I spoke English, then it would be against everything that I stood for. And so I didn't speak at all.
But today they all speak English, and some have taken business courses, home economics, and other higher training.
Took us into another room down there, and maybe down in the playroom, we took all our clothes off and we put the clothes of the school on. Yeah, and they give us a number. So my number was like 48, and my brother was 36.
My family was the state-run institute, and the nickname for the Thomas Indian School is Salem. And Salem was derived from asylum. And you know what an asylum is. It's for crazy people. So we were thought of as being crazy, I guess.
They were just considered bad people, bad children, but they weren't bad children, okay? They were placed there for so many different reasons, but not because of any kind of delinquency on their part. But that is not how they were treated.
We went from washing up in the morning, and they marched us to the chow hall where we ate. Everything was routine, just like the military.
One of the superintendents during the time that my mother was there actually came from correctional services. And so because that person came with that kind of a background in corrections and working in penitentiaries, that's exactly how he decided that Thomas Indian School would be operated. Children marched from here to there, just everything, you know, had its place. I talked to some of the men who went there. I would say majority of them went into the military. Military life was easy for them. They knew how to do all the marching, they knew how to line up, they knew how to dress with their uniforms, everything being exact, making the bed in a military style. They knew all that before they went into the military.
I was in A division, my sister was in B division. A whole lot of things that happened. Things that I can remember. When I was 6 years old, this man chased Rosemary and I from Mohawk Park because they took us all on an outing when it was time to come home. This man called us into the gazebo, told Rosemary and I that he had something for us, and that's where he tried to molest us. And we ran. And even now I have nightmares of running.
But my brother, he ran away after being here about 5 years. They never caught him. So
he said that we were really bad and we were born of the devil. And if we told anybody what he was doing, they wouldn't believe us anyway. And that's so true, because when he did, I think he had penetrated me that time, and I was bleeding and I was sore, and I went and I told the nurse, and she asked me what happened, so I told her, and she gave me a strapping, a real good strapping, and she told me, don't you ever speak about him like that again. She said, he would never do anything like that to you. So there I was again, getting another licking. And like now when I think about all the things that happened, I said, you're damned if you did and damned if you didn't, no matter which way you got a licking. And it just wasn't, just wasn't right.
And I remember this person telling me that any of the boys in his particular dormitory floor who were not circumcised yet at that point, without being told, were marched over to the infirmary, and if they weren't circumcised by then, they were circumcised, and if they didn't have their tonsils out by then. They had their tonsils removed. And I just couldn't imagine from his story how this could take place, number one. And number two, back in those times, in the late 40s and early 50s, they didn't have air conditioning like we had. And just the whole trauma of that personal invasion.
We were always having a physical. And then, like I said, if you had a hangnail, you had to go see the doctor. And if you got caught sitting on the ground or holding hands with the boy, you had to go see the doctor. They were all the time checking to make sure that everybody was a virgin. So in the summertime when we went out to work, he would give us a physical. And then when we came back, we'd get the physical. I said, and you better come back with everything that you left. You know, he wanted to know if you had intercourse or not, you know. And, but everything, little thing, sexual, they were always checking on us, you know. Yeah, they had you scared. But one girl thought that you got pregnant just holding hands.
They had shop on this floor here, then home economics on above.
Yeah, so I had my tonsils out, and I can remember trying to fool them. They used to put us to sleep with the ether. So they put a mask over us and we'd be tied down. And they'd pour that ether over our nose right like this and wait a while. And you would have to inhale that, you know. And then they'd put some more on there again until you actually fell asleep from the ether. And then they'd take your tonsils out.
And there's the hospital over there. If you want to get up closer. Yeah, I spent a year in that building, the hospital.
And then we always laughed about, there was a head in there he had in a bottle. We'd show everybody that got admitted to the hospital. You want to see the head? And it was in a jar that he'd saved. Appendix too were saved. He had them in a little bottle. So you want your appendix back? You know, they save those.
Just kept getting one thing right after the other. I had infection in my ear, then I had whooping cough, mumps, measles, you name it, I had it. And I had no help with my schoolwork. I ended up failing.
My brother was in sick there, and they said he just had a cough and a cold. And they would never let my father go up to see him. So one day my father came and he told the nurse he was going up to see his son and there was nothing she could do to stop him. And she said that she would call the principal, and he told her, call the principal. He pushed her out of the way and he went up. He says when he got up there, the stench was so bad he couldn't even hardly breathe. And he went in and there was my brother. The principal came running up after him, telling him to leave, and he told the principal, he said, if you don't want to go down those stairs, he said, you better leave. He says, and you better call the ambulance. So they called an ambulance, and the ambulance came. My brother was in Brantford General Hospital for 6 months. He had pleurisy, and he was there for 6 months. Then he was transferred to Lady Wellington Hospital in Oswego for 3 more months. When he came out of the hospital, he was so weak he couldn't even hold a pencil. And he just never ever really got better. He died an alcoholic.
What we see and the people we work with, there is multi-generational alcoholism in a lot of the families that we've worked with. And we do genealogy charts usually with the family to find out who their family is and what their resources they might have. And we do find that some of the parents or grandparents that they had were in boarding schools.
I would like to share with you part of my childhood and the effects boarding school has had on me. My father attended the Thomas Indian School. My grandfather went to Carlisle.
My mother and father were both in a boarding school, and my father was married before he married my mother, so he had 2 children, and they were sent away to boarding school. So I might say 2 generations there were in boarding school. My mother went to Thomas Indian School, and my father was at Carlisle, which was in Pennsylvania.
We all Tonawanda men sit together. I just want to grab a picture of my mom.
She had an Indian name, and the name that she had was to be a faith keeper's name. When she came out of that school, she couldn't speak a lick of Seneca.
You can see the difficulty in when the families try to parent their children, that the lack of bonding with their children, some anger, you know, as a matter of fact, there's a lot of anger and alcoholism. So those are some things that I see on a regular basis from families that had a relative or parent or grandparent who were in boarding schools.
I was ready for bed. Mom made Daddy get me up. I thought it was already ready for school. Okay? Got me up and cut all my hair off to above, right below my ear. She cut about that much. That was the last time I was allowed long hair. That's abuse.
And that was standard practice at the boarding school?
Yeah.
Everybody went through that one.
Everyone, you see? But that was another thing. We don't know
Carryover.
if that was a carryover. We don't know.
She was trained to be a domestic. She learned the art of physical punishment.
With the harsh punishment, you have a lot of domestic violence. When a child is constantly defending themselves from the rest of the world, they cannot grow emotionally because they're always defending themselves against whatever is coming at them.
When I started going to school down there, it was a good thing because I got to hang around with the people I got to play with all day long. But then they try to teach us this stuff we don't know anything about. At the time, I knew the language pretty well. I grew up with Seneca language. I got my hands hit a lot for doing it, and I got to paddle a lot for doing it.
But in 2nd grade, Mrs. Cooley had us do a play, and we all had a great time with that play. And the play she chose was Little Black Sambo. And none of us really had been exposed to black people before, so we didn't know any difference, so we put on the Little Black Sambo play. And when she picked the cast, she told us this too. She picked the person in the room that was of the darkest skin to play Sambo. And we all had our part. So it was a very, I guess, subtle way to begin that whole teaching about racism, and who is and who isn't, and the way we feel about people that are different than ourselves. So, and it kind of got built in at a really young age.
When I began to search out why I did the things that I did, that I begin to understand what my father went through.
I can remember my mother kind of ran our household like an institution. We had our daily chores, weekly chores posted to the refrigerator each week. We had to make our beds like in military style. That's exactly how she taught us. Everything was just prim and proper to the ironing, all of that. But it was almost in the same structure that she learned and she adopted in the only way that she knew how as a resident of a boarding school. Have we passed some of that on to our children? Yes, I think so. Is there going to be a point in time where our children's children will begin to move away from some of that? I think so, because I think in part of the healing that our families and our communities are going through, and actually looking at some of this impact and being able to talk about it in a good and healthy way and to understand and to reflect, not in a negative way, helps us just to move beyond that and to try and get back a lot that we lost.
So I'm just here today to look for that healing. I'm not looking for anything else. And I am looking to forgive. I forgave my mother, but I wanna forget Thomas Indian School, because I know in my heart that my mother did the best she could by me. You know, she wasn't to blame. She had an institution that was her parent.
Kids were taken from here and sent to boarding schools like that. They would take young children, I'd say 5, 6 years old, and send them. That's hard on a child. They changed their way of life, you'd say, by doing that. They were used to living here, I mean. Everybody knows that. And everybody that really lived here, I don't think they could move from here.
Nobody said anything. But I come down here so I can talk about my father, because I'm proud of him. I'm proud of the life that he led, and that he did the best he could with me and my sister and my brother.
How long will it take us to really get back the whole idea of what a family is? What you know, father, mother, son, daughter, what does that bond mean? And not only just that, but even extending out to your extended family. Because these children, even if they didn't have parents, if they were truly orphaned, or if they had parents who truly couldn't take care of them, what happened to the extended family? That was also cut.
You know, that's the point of it. We were only Native people. So, you know, yeah, so they let that stuff go.
So it would take a long time to undo, and I can't say that it would ever happen, because to heal, the apology from the government that allowed this to happen, I would say would never apologize. And what good would a hollow apology be? That's how I look at it. For an apology would have to be sincere. And how could it be sincere if it came from a guy that never went through that experience? Or was the one behind it? It was before their time that it started. So how could they be apologetic towards what they did to us?
Hearing what he suffered through was a tough pill to swallow. I mean, he was a 5-year-old boy, a little boy. Imagine your 5-year-old being taken away from you. Or you at 5 years old being taken away from your mother. I mean, how would you feel? I couldn't imagine being taken away from my mom and dad at 5 years old.
I would have never let it happen. I would have fought.